The case of the vanishing heirloom. Detective Robert Lawson sat in his dimly lit office, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting shadows on the walls. The rain pounded against the window, setting a melancholic mood. He sipped his lukewarm coffee, pondering the case that had just landed on his desk. It was a cold Tuesday morning when a distraught woman, Mrs. Eleanor Hastings, had walked into his office. She was elegantly dressed but had a look of worry etched on her face. She explained that her family's most prized possession, a priceless heirloom, had vanished without a trace. The Hastings family had owned the lunar pearl, a rare and exquisite pearl necklace passed down through generations. The necklace had been kept in a vault inside their mansion for years, but it had disappeared overnight. No signs of forced entry, no broken locks, just an empty vault where the lunar pearl once lay. Robert decided to visit the Hastings mansion to examine the scene. As he walked through the opulent halls, he sensed an air of tension among the household staff. He started his questioning with the staff, but no one seemed to have seen anything suspicious. The detective then turned his attention to the family members themselves. Mrs. Eleanor Hastings and her two adult children, James and Emily, were the only ones with access to the vault. As he interviewed each of them separately, he noticed their stories didn't quite align. Eleanor seemed genuinely distraught, while James appeared evasive, and Emily overly defensive. His suspicions grew, and he requested permission to search the family's private quarters. The family reluctantly agreed, and Robert began his search. It didn't take long before he discovered a hidden compartment in Emily's room containing the lunar pearl. Confronting Emily with the evidence, she finally broke down and confessed. She had been living a lavish lifestyle far beyond her means and was drowning in debt. Desperate to maintain her facade, she had stolen the necklace, planning to pawn it for a large sum of money. Robert returned the lunar pearl to Mrs. Eleanor Hastings, who was relieved to have it back in her possession. Emily was taken into custody, and the family, though torn by the betrayal, found solace in the fact that their precious heirloom was safe. As the rain continued to fall outside, Detective Robert Lawson sat back in his office, his latest case solved. He knew that the shadows of deception often lurked in the most unexpected places, but with a keen eye and a relentless determination, he would always bring them to light. Weeks passed after the lunar pearl's recovery, but Detective Robert Lawson couldn't shake off a nagging feeling. Emily's motive for the theft didn't entirely add up. There was something deeper, more sinister, lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly solved case. One evening, as Robert revisited the case notes, he noticed a discrepancy in Emily's confession. She had mentioned having financial difficulties, but the evidence suggested otherwise. Her bank records showed a stable financial situation, and there was no indication of any recent extravagant spending. With renewed determination, Robert decided to pay another visit to the Hastings mansion, this time unannounced. He arrived just in time to see a mysterious man leaving the premises. The man's face was unfamiliar, and he wore a hat pulled low to conceal his identity. Robert gave chase, but the man disappeared into the bustling city. Returning to the mansion, Robert confronted Emily once more. Her demeanor had changed, and she appeared less defensive. When he mentioned the mysterious man, Emily's face paled, and she reluctantly provided a name, Victor Drayton. Victor Drayton, it turned out, was a con artist known for his involvement in various criminal enterprises. Emily confessed that she had indeed stolen the lunar pearl, but under the pressure of Drayton's threats. He had discovered her secret financial difficulties and forced her to steal the necklace, promising that it would be returned once he'd secured a hefty ransom. Robert realized that Emily had been manipulated into the theft, and her previous confession had been an attempt to protect herself from Drayton's wrath. With Emily's cooperation, the detective devised a plan to catch Drayton and recover the necklace once and for all. They set up a sting operation, using the lunar pearl as bait. Emily arranged a meeting with Drayton at a discreet location. As Drayton arrived to collect his ransom, the police swooped in, apprehending him and recovering the precious heirloom. With Drayton behind bars and the lunar pearl returned to the Hastings family, justice was finally served. Emily, relieved of her guilt and under the condition of cooperation with the authorities, was given a chance to rebuild her life. As Detective Robert Lawson closed the case for the second time, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He had not only solved the mystery but had also uncovered a deeper layer of deception. In the end, it was not just about recovering the lunar pearl. It was about revealing the truth and bringing those responsible to justice. As the rain outside finally began to clear, Robert knew that the shadows of deceit would always exist, but as long as there were determined detectives like him, they would never remain hidden for long. With Victor Drayton behind bars and Emily Hastings free from his grip, life at the Hastings mansion slowly returned to normal. The tension that had once hung in the air dissipated, and the family found a newfound sense of unity in the face of adversity. Detective Robert Lawson, however, couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. He decided to dig deeper into Victor Drayton's criminal connections, hoping to unravel the full extent of his operation. Robert's investigation led him down a labyrinthine path of deceit and criminal networks. It turned out that Drayton was not just a common con artist but a key player in an underground organization specializing in high-stakes thefts and art forgery. One lead led to another, and Robert found himself on the trail of a legendary art thief known as the Ghost. The Ghost was renowned for his ability to steal priceless artworks from under the tightest security measures, leaving no trace behind. Rumors suggested that the Ghost had been pulling the strings in the Lunar Pearl heist. Robert's pursuit of the Ghost took him across the country and deep into the criminal underworld. He formed an unlikely alliance with a former art curator named Isabella, who had once been deceived by the Ghost herself. Together, they followed a series of cryptic clues and intricate puzzles that seemed to lead to the thief's next target. The tension escalated as Robert and Isabella closed in on the Ghost. Each clue brought them one step closer, but also put them in greater danger. The Ghost was known for his cunning and ruthlessness, and he would stop at nothing to protect his identity and his stolen treasures. Finally, on a stormy night in a remote countryside mansion, Robert and Isabella confronted the Ghost. A dramatic showdown unfolded, involving a complex trap set by the thief himself. The room was filled with suspense as the three adversaries engaged in a battle of wits and strategy. In the end, with Robert's keen detective skills and Isabella's knowledge of art, they outsmarted the Ghost. The thief was captured, and his stolen art collection, including the Lunar Pearl, was recovered. As Robert returned the Lunar Pearl to the Hastings family for the third time, he couldn't help but reflect on the complexity of the case. What had begun as a simple theft had unraveled into a web of deception and intrigue that had taken him to the darkest corners of the criminal world. With the Ghost apprehended and the stolen art returned to their rightful owners, justice was finally served. Detective Robert Lawson had not only solved a mystery but had also exposed a criminal network that had eluded the authorities for years. As he left the Hastings mansion one last time, Robert knew that his work as a detective was far from over. The shadows of deceit might always lurk in the corners, but as long as there were those willing to pursue the truth, they would never prevail for long. The capture of the Ghost was a significant triumph for Detective Robert Lawson, but it was also a sobering reminder that the criminal underworld ran deep and was filled with elusive figures like the Ghost. As he continued his work, he couldn't help but wonder if there were more untold stories waiting to be uncovered. One day, as Robert was going through old case files, he stumbled upon a series of seemingly unrelated thefts of rare artifacts and historical treasures. The cases spanned several years, and while individual investigations had been conducted, no one had ever connected the dots between them. Robert's curiosity got the better of him, and he began to piece together the evidence from these cold cases. Patterns emerged, and he realized that there was a common thread running through all of them, a mysterious organization known as the Reliquarians. The Reliquarians, as Robert discovered, were a shadowy group of thieves with a penchant for stealing historical artifacts and relics of great cultural significance. They operated with a level of sophistication that made the Ghost seem like an amateur. Each theft was meticulously planned, leaving behind no clues or witnesses. With determination burning in his eyes, Robert decided to dig deeper into the activities of the reliquarians. He reached out to international law enforcement agencies and experts in art and artifact theft, assembling a team of specialists from around the world to assist in the investigation. The pursuit of the reliquarians took Robert and his team to various corners of the globe. They followed a trail of stolen treasures that led them from the ancient pyramids of Egypt to the hidden temples of Cambodia. The group's activities were not limited to art theft. They were involved in smuggling, forgery, and even espionage. As Robert closed in on the reliquarians, he realized that the stakes were higher than ever before. The group had grown more powerful and elusive with each successful heist. He knew that a direct confrontation with them would be perilous, and he needed a plan that would outwit even the most cunning of thieves. The climax of the story took place in an underground lair in a remote part of the world. Robert and his team executed a meticulously planned operation, leveraging their knowledge of the reliquarians' modus operandi against them. The result was a dramatic confrontation that would test Robert's resolve and intelligence to the limits. In the end, Robert's determination, combined with the expertise of his team, led to the capture and dismantling of the reliquarians. The stolen artifacts were recovered and returned to their rightful owners, bringing an end to a criminal organization that had plagued the world for years. As he stood in the dimly lit underground lair, surrounded by the relics of a criminal empire that had finally crumbled, Robert Lawson couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. He knew that there would always be new mysteries to solve and new shadows to chase, but for now, justice had prevailed. With the relics of the reliquarians safely in the hands of experts, Robert left the underground lair, knowing that the world was a little safer and a little brighter because of his relentless pursuit of the truth. In the aftermath of the takedown of the reliquarians, Detective Robert Lawson and his team received widespread recognition for their relentless pursuit of justice. The stolen artifacts, each with its own unique historical and cultural significance, were meticulously catalogued, and efforts were made to return them to their countries of origin. The reliquarians' leaders and key members were brought to justice, and their elaborate network of criminal enterprises was dismantled. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief as these shadowy figures were taken off the streets, and countless stolen treasures were restored to museums and cultural institutions around the globe. Despite the resounding success, Robert couldn't shake off a sense of unease. He knew that criminal organizations like the reliquarians were like Hydra, cut off one head, and two more would appear. His pursuit of justice had become a lifelong journey, and he was more determined than ever to uncover the truth and expose those who thrived in the shadows. With each solved case, Robert learned that there were always deeper layers of deception and complexity. The pursuit of justice wasn't just about solving mysteries, it was about shining a light into the darkest corners of humanity and exposing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or unsettling it might be. As the years passed, Robert continued to take on challenging cases, each one testing his intellect, his resourcefulness, and his unwavering dedication to the truth. He became known as a legendary detective, a figure who could unravel the most intricate webs of deceit. But he never forgot the lessons he had learned along the way, that the pursuit of justice required not only intelligence but also empathy, that behind every crime there were often stories of desperation and despair, and that the shadows of deception could be dispelled with the light of truth. And so, Detective Robert Lawson's journey continued, one case at a time, in a world where mysteries awaited their resolution and where justice was a beacon guiding him through the darkness. For he knew that as long as there were shadows, there would always be a detective willing to chase them away.